Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Tryon. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Monday Night Live. Tonight, it is Ask a Technician night, and that just happens to be you.
Mike Damour.
Mike Damour from Gem Sewing. Thank you so much for being here. You're live with us in Kingston, Ontario. You made the trip from Northern Ontario. We appreciate that.
Yep.
That's where Gem Sewing is. 3 locations.
In Northern Ontario, yes. Sudbury, North Bay, and New Liskeard.
So hello to everybody watching from the Gem Sewing pages. And everybody, tell us where you're watching from tonight. What part of the world are you in? We love knowing where you're coming from.
Or province.
Yes, what part of the province you're in. Oh, this is looking very white. Is it looking very white to you guys? Yeah, actually, maybe we'll just turn down the white a little bit. It's like you want to know what? I've got to look at this light stand right in the middle of the. That was my fault.
You said you were going to leave me hanging here.
There we go. Sorry. Yeah, you know. 4 people in Englehart. Hi, everybody in Englehart.
Hi, Diane. I see Diane.
Yeah.
Watching.
Yep, Diane, Northern Vancouver. We have a special treat tonight because it's Ask a Technician night. If you would like to ask us a question, hey, Amanda Brown, if you would like to ask us a question, there's a link that we have posted in the chat. Scroll up. There's a link there's a link in the chat.
Yep.
And if you click that link, you'll be on live with me and Mike. Now, you won't come in right away. There'll be a little delay. You'll put your name in, and then I'll introduce you and we'll bring you up to talk about your questions. Because, you know, we're always on here and we're doing projects and we're talking about this technique and that foot and this thread and that fabric and this fun project. And our poor machine is just there day in and day out, working and working and working.
Overtime.
Getting no credit, getting no help from us. And we do need to, learn how to clean and oil and really take care of these machines that do take good care of us and get all those projects done for us. So if you've got questions about clunking or threading or skipping or stitches or whatever, please, you can type them in the chat or click that link that we've put in the chat. Mandel will put it there again. If you're not seeing it, Gail will put it. Amanda, why don't you email it to Gail too? Then she can put it in the Gem Sewing chat, and because we'd love to hear from you. For right now, we can see Irene, Paulette, Patricia, Laura Lee from Temiskaming. Yay!
Quebec.
Yep, that's great. So if you have a question about your machine, Mike has taken this one apart already. And maybe, what do we look, I mean, the guts here. We have a couple things we're going to show you at first. So this is like a skeleton, what your Janome machine anyway looks like on the inside.
Full frame.
Full frame, all metal, even small ones like this, they have these all metal frames.
Correct.
And then they've got all of this extra wiring and stuff like, what are we looking at here?
So we are looking at a machine that is tore down from here.
Yep.
Down to this.
Okay.
So as a technician, this is as far down as I bring the machines for servicing. So when I get the machine, it looks like this. Halfway through my servicing, it looks like this. So I'm cleaning it up, taking it apart, and I'm looking for specifics. So jumping back and forth right off the bat, I don't know how many people or how many times I've seen. I'm just going to move this over. And
go ahead. You take your time. I'm going to come on over here.
I knew you were going to leave me hanging.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay. So off the bat, I see so many people take their thread out this way, and they pull their thread backwards through the system. If you're pulling your thread backwards through the system, you're pulling all the lint, the dust back into your tension discs because your thread is clean going through, it's dirty coming backwards. So I recommend everybody cut your thread, if at all possible, and pull your thread out at the bottom after you have your pressure foot up. It's much easier. Pull it through. I realize that it is 23 inches, 24 inches of thread, but it's a lot simpler to do it that way as opposed to pulling all the dust and dirt back through the system. So we'll start off by just looking quickly at underneath the needle plate. So everybody should be popping their needle plate This is stuff that the home sewer, the user, can take apart themselves. Up with the needle plate, removing the needle plate, inspecting the needle plate. When I look at a needle plate, I'm looking for any needle strikes. I'll see if I can get this underneath here. I'm looking here for any needle strikes, any marks. Usually I can clean them up, but if there's too bad, then we'll have to replace the plate. That can cause skip stitches, not so nice looking stitches. So there's one point where you can check out yourselves. Bobbin cases. Bobbin cases, you'll have the odd bobbin case that'll have a needle strike on it. And we'll get that back underneath here. It's a little hard to see, but I look for any types of needle strikes or any marks on the bobbin cases. Sometimes the needle will strike the bobbin case. The needle will go right through the bobbin case and come back out. You don't notice it.
And so if you have your bobbin case out,
Yes.
and you could do your own little finger test along
Yes.
here too, right? If you've had a big needle break in your machine and, if it's at all rough
You
along
can feel
here,
it with your fingernail.
can
Easily
feel
feel it as you drag your fingernail across the bobbin case. And if you feel that, there is a simple fix. Sometimes it'll work. You can get yourself a small piece of sandpaper and you would just sand down on top of where the needle strike was until you drag your fingernail across there and you can't feel it.
Because if you have a needle strike on your bobbin case and you're wondering why your thread might be shredding,
bunching up mostly on the bottom.
yeah, it can catch on these little bits of plastic that got
And
damaged.
Just a little
Doesn't take
goes
much.
through. It's a small burr upwards, and the thread rolling around the top when it completes its stitch, it'll get hooked. It'll get caught. It'll make a mess on the bottom side. If they are too far gone, then you'll have to replace your bobbin case.
We did have one come in and we were like, what's going on with this? And then we just saw, wait a second.
Yep.
Did the needle go all the way through the bobbin?
All
And
the
it
way
went all the way through the bobbin casing. And so every time that thread came around across the bobbin casing, it was just catching on that one little part.
Every single
And she couldn't
stitch.
figure out why after about, a minute worth of stitching, it had finally sawed right through the thread.
The other thing I look for is bobbins. Making sure that we are using the correct bobbin for the correct machine. So the machines that we have here tonight are Janomes, so they will require a Janome bobbin. I know people have bobbins kicking around their house. They are incorrect. These ones here that we have right here are also Janome bobbins, blue and the pink and the clear.
And the red, there's also red Janome has,
Now, the reason I say bobbins is because so many people have had their mother's machine kicking around or grandmother's, and they have the older Singer bobbins. They're beveled on the top and the bottom. Yep, they'll work.
Or sometimes I've seen like some Singer bobbins have Singer like
written on them.
Right on them.
They'll work for a short period, a very short period, and then all of a sudden they're jumping inside the bobbin case. It's because you're not using the correct bobbins.
Yeah.
Use the correct bobbins. You won't have a problem. So the other thing I'm going to point out here is most of the Janomes have a magnet underneath. We'll focus in on that. If we can, right there. I can point to that. So they will have a magnet in the middle, right down in here. I'm touching it there right now, and it's hard to see, but you can tell it's a magnet. So there's a magnet in there. So if you're using a metal bobbin in your bobbin case, you're going to change the tension in your bobbin case because the magnet is going to hold that metal bobbin a little harder to turn. So you're going to change your tension in your bobbin case. So that would be another cause. So the next thing I look at is needles. Needles I see needles on a regular basis. Some of them are broke. Some of them are found on the magnet.
Some of them are way down in the machine.
Yes. But the first thing I do when I get a machine in, I grab the needle and I throw it.
Same.
Yep. So 8 hours of needle use, machine use. throw your needle. It's not worth keeping if it's giving you hassle now and you put it in a little container and 2 months down the road, you take that needle out, you're going to have that same problem.
Yeah.
So take your needle, and I got a little Sharps container, fill it up, dump them out later, but change your needles. So Janome has their branded needles.
Mm-hmm.
We have a purple tip, we have a red, and a blue. For me, I prefer the purples. The purples seem to cover a lot of
myriad of evils for sure. They're more expensive.
Yep.
So the overall kind of, thought pattern is red tips for everyday use,
Yep.
purple tips for almost anything, especially if something's giving you trouble.
Yep.
Purple tips will usually take care of it, and blue tip needles for anything stretch or embroidery.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So needles are also a thing. So I have a lot of phone calls every now and again. My machine's skipping stitches. The first thing I ask is, what are we sewing? What are we doing? What materials are you using? If you're using a batik, you're going to have to change your needle. Skipping stitches, try 2 pieces of regular cotton fabric, sew with it.
It's funny how batiks sometimes just
batiks
really
are nasty. They're beautiful to work with. I like working with them, but
they act differently under your needle, than regular quilting cotton.
So needles make a difference.
Yeah. So when you're sewing with batiks, purple tip? What do you think? Yeah.
I've used purple tip, yes.
Or just stick with the red tip and see how it goes.
Purple.
Yeah.
Purple is what I end up using.
Mandel put a link.
So that was my next run, is down to the needle. So take the needle and it gets discarded, and then we start servicing. So we're looking for any type of lint, dust, dirt in the machines.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular machine was taken apart earlier. So we're going to just put this upside down and hopefully
and just come right. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So I'm going to start cleaning from the bottom end. And as you can see, this machine needs a little bit of cleaning. That's not too bad.
Jessica's asking, do you guys clean and do repairs on sewing machines? And Jessica, let us know what city you're in, because yes, both Homemade and Gem Sewing both service machines. And if you're just joining us, we're doing an Ask a Technician night here. We're in the Homemade Studios in Kingston, Ontario, and we're joined by Mike Damour from Gem Sewing and Gem Sewing in Sudbury, New Liskeard, and North Bay. We're here in Kingston. In Southern Ontario. And so wherever you're located, either if you're in Southern Ontario, come see us in Kingston. If you're in Northern Ontario, you can visit Gem Sewing. And you do want to be having your machine professionally serviced at least once a year. And Mike's going through right now, if you're just tuning in, what he looks for when he brings the machine in. But stay watching, because we're going to tell you how you can clean your machine regularly at home. And we're going to show you some points that you can put oil on your machine at home so that in between professional servicing, it's still going to continue to run. Now, there are actually, there's probably a dozen points inside the machine that you cannot access without taking the machine completely apart.
And we would prefer that you not take the machine apart.
Yeah, you're just asking for it. Like, honestly, it's tough. It's tough.
It might cost a little bit more to put it back together if it comes in pieces.
Like, I'm just looking at like some of the grime that's even just, this is my own machine. Yep. And I try to follow some guidelines, but when you use them,
you're going to get
when you use them, they get dirty. You just have to regularly oil and clean, and you'll be okay. Okay, I'm just going to look at what Linda's saying. Yeah, I unfortunately used one of those strong magnetic
seam markers.
Yeah, seam markers. They keep your seam straight and have done, actually just to move that, and have done something to my machine. So could that magnet being used on the top pull through to the bottom and prevent that from completely winding?
Linda, if you're using a metal bobbin, possibly, but I use the magnetic seam guide myself on other machines without any issues whatsoever. So there might be another underlying issue. I'd have to take a look, or Lynn would have to take a look.
Yeah,
and go from there.
Linda, I know you're not local, but you could give us a call. We can talk. Our technician can talk you through it. If you have your box and you want to ship it to us, we can send you a label for that too, and we can take a look at your machine that way. In general, the big magnet, I actually would be a little nervous putting a big magnet. No, not you?
No, because
there's so many magnetic things under there.
Yep. Well, if you look at the M7 and the M17, they have the magnetic
That's
needle
true.
plate.
That's true.
Push the button and the needle plate comes up.
All right. Keep selling me. I like it. Okay.
I can sell you an M17.
I do love the M17.
Yes.
I do love the M17.
And the 8 is nice too.
Yes, the new M8.
So yes, the magnet, I do not see an issue with it. I haven't had any issues with those.
Dana has a very good question, and I've heard this a couple of times. She has the 6650, and she's having trouble with the thread popping out of this little guy right.
Take-up lever.
Yeah, the take-up lever, right? That's yeah.
So
well, actually, no, sorry. She's having it number 6, like down here. But we've heard instances of the thread coming off at multiple parts.
If it pops out of the take-up lever, which is up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to see here, right there. So if it's popping out of there, there is a small finger, we'll call it, that holds the thread in the guide itself. If it's not threaded correctly, if you're not pulling your thread all the way into the hole, that's a possibility. We get so complacent with threading the machine over and over, quickly, fast. It could be that this little spring is not holding tight enough, and it is popping past. So there can be a slight adjustment done there by a technician. So
Damien had one come in last week, similar issue, and that little piece that's in that take-up lever just had to be bent forward just a little bit more. Yep. And so he adjusted it. It was an easy fix, and that prevented that from happening. Now, what about if the thread is popping out of this bar here? Maybe you can zoom out a little bit overhead, Exie, yeah, and then that way. What if it's coming out of this bar here? I think that's also a spot.
There is also a slight adjustment on here and on the needle guide itself.
Yeah.
There is a slight adjustment. If it's popping out on a regular basis, I would have it brought in, have the technician look at it, possibly adjust or replace that small piece, that small box. Box.
Yeah.
It can be replaced.
Every single part on the machine, there's a manual that the home user gets, and then there's a manual that the technicians get. There's a part.
A lot of reading on our part sometimes.
My goodness. Amanda Brown says, "Don't be scared, Jen." Yeah. Yeah. Like we even had someone replace this button and replace that little tiny thing.
All the components can be replaced.
Yeah. So it may be just that something's off.
There is models that have been discontinued that are not parts accessible anymore, but for the most part, most of the newer ones can be replaced.
Can these items cause the thread cutter to not cut? I don't think there's anything magnetic in the
Nope.
Yeah,
because the thread cutter is.
Dana, if you're having problems with the thread cutter not cutting, if you're using Deco Bob or a very, very thin thread, sometimes your needle threader won't work because the thread is just so thin, it misses it. It's so light and airy under there that when the blade goes like this, it just swipes right over it. So that sometimes happens when you're piecing with Deco Bob. So I know you've been using, you've probably been using Deco Bob because you have a bunch of our kits. And the thread was in there. And that's what we find sometimes with thin thread.
Yes, I was just going to say too. A lot of some of our customers,
the thick threads too,
the heavier threads. The machines will sew with them. The certain weight threads. I don't recommend using the scissor cutter. The scissor cutter is just a small knife. It's meant to cut thread. It's not meant to cut the upholstery thread.
Nancy's saying gem sewing is so helpful. Love that store.
Oh well, thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, we'll throw that up on the screen. Oh yeah!
Wow!
Yeah. There's people. We've got like more than 100 people tuned in, so it's amazing.
Sweet. So yeah, needle threaders. So I know I've seen over and over again needle threaders. I try to educate everybody on needle threaders because that's also a component that can be replaced. Quickly, we can show right here. This component right here that I'm touching with my finger is just a needle threader pin. It can be replaced. I tell everybody before you use your needle threader, needle down, needle up.
Yeah.
So the needle down button, hit it once, hit it again, and put it into the proper position for the needle threader to work.
And don't just flick your needle threader up.
No,
Don't. It's the number one thing when you're threading the needle. Now, this is a fairly manual one, but even with the ones that are a little more sophisticated than this model, it's down, and we're lifting the needle threader gingerly, like up, slowly and carefully, feeling that thread go up. We're not just flicking it like, there we go.
Yes.
You know, like we're flicking a cigarette out and goodbye. No, we're doing carefully, just up it goes. And that's going to really, really help.
Take care of your machine. Take care of your machine.
Yeah.
So continue on.
Yes.
So we'll move this off to the side.
Okay.
And we'll grab this one here.
Sure.
Take this off. And as a consumer.
So this is what people can do at home.
If we can get that overhead again.
Yeah.
There we go. Feel free to take your needle plate off. 2 screws on the needle plate for the most part. 2 screws on the needle plate. Pop them out. And then you're looking down below here where my finger is pointing. I know it's a little difficult to see, but down there you can
if you actually turn Mike this way and turn and we can go to this shot right here. It might be even easier for people to there we go.
There we go. So easily cleaned out down below. So like I said before, there is a magnet right here that does come out. Don't be afraid. It's just sitting there. It sits right back in, no problem. You'll see in the center, there is a small little piece of lint. It's not lint. Don't take it out.
Yes, that doesn't get removed.
It's a felt that actually holds oil to help lubricate down below. Do not take it out. If it does come out, it can be replaced. So clean up, take your needle out, take your presser foot out. Just 1 second there. And take your needle out and take your presser foot off, and you can clean up inside the
and are we
hook
just
area
talking like with that little brush that comes with the machine?
Small brush, amazing little tool. Makeup brushes work well too.
Okay. Q-tips?
Q-tips, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, use Q-tips. Go ahead, use makeup brushes. I've had some people say pipe cleaners. And I'm not a fan of pipe cleaners because pipe cleaners have a metal rod usually with inside, and we are trying not to scratch and mark anything.
Okay.
Pipe cleaners in my books are a no-no. So our little brush works very well. Makeup brushes work well also. Clean out. So one comment is made to me, can I use compressed air? I don't recommend compressed air. Compressed air is condensation inside. You're blowing air plus water mixed. It's not worth it. Use the brushes, clean it out. It works great. Not the pipe cleaners. And I'll get into the pipe cleaner again after, but as we can still see, this is what we're looking at. Clean up in there, you'll be good. And then make sure that you seat your bobbin case when you put it back in. Make sure your bobbin case goes back in flat. Oh, okay.
When threading, do you raise the pressure foot up? And the other question is, how do you change the needle threader?
So, first one we'll address is what was the first one?
Yeah, she was asking, I think it was a comment, someone saying, when you're threading, when threading, raising the presser foot up. I think she's saying release the tension discs, right?
Presser foot down, your discs are together, so you're not going to get thread in between your discs. Raise your presser foot, the discs open up, thread falls in, and you can continue on. I always like to hang on to the thread at the top as I'm threading through to keep a little bit of tension on the thread to make sure it gets in between the discs. So for me, I lift my presser foot up. How do I change a needle threader?
Yeah, Diane's asking how to change the needle threader.
Okay.
You have to basically bring your machine in to change the needle threader because
Yes and no.
okay.
Yes and no. I've sold several of the pins, and the pins just pop off quickly. Okay. So the pin is off, and it's in my hand. There is an adjustment, but it's really difficult sometimes, and it's easier to have the technician put it on than it's done properly. So then, but I've had customers come in, purchase, and if it's not doesn't need to be adjusted, it works.
Okay.
And if it doesn't, it still has to come in and see you anyways.
Yep. Maria's asking, I have a 4120.
Okay.
Does that machine need to be oiled? It's so interesting that she's saying, does that machine need to be oiled? Because
4120s.
all machines need to be oiled.
So yes, 4120 is not going to look much different
than this one.
Than this
it's going
one.
to look very
here.
similar.
So your 4120 is going to look like this. This is what the stripped down version looks like. And the 4120 does need to be oiled. It has moving parts, metal. It all needs to be oiled in certain spots. And that's what all of the technicians in Janome would have learned, where to oil all these spots.
And so if you're at home and you're in between, how often should we be oiling it at home? And where are we going to put that oil, Mike?
So for me, 1 drop of oil goes into here. That little felt that's down in the hole, I put 1 drop of oil in there, and usually I'll put a drop of oil on the edge of the right.
Why don't you grab the oil and go ahead and oil that machine? That way we can really see what we're working with. And
1 drop.
And we're not talking vegetable oil. We're not talking car oil. No. We're talking about sewing machine oil. So I'm going to get a shot of the sewing machine oil because
I have seen machines come in that were covered in motor oil. Martin and myself, we had one covered in, I think it was car grease.
Yeah, not oil. Not every oil is meant for your machine.
No, and canola oil doesn't work. It's not. So we use Janome oil.
And the Janome oil bottles, I'll just kind of show you here. They've got this spout on the top. Yeah, it's hard to see with the light. They've got this extra long spout so that you can really bend and get it in where you need it.
Yeah.
And this is available for you to purchase.
But it'll last. This bottle will last you
500 years,
long time. Because, like I said,
unless you have a long arm,
you are using 1 drop of oil. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, we're gonna just
1 drop of oil is what you're going to use, and 1 drop of oil goes a long way. So,
okay,
1 drop of oil in,
and show. Let's tilt and show exactly where you're putting that.
1 drop of oil into this particular spot right here.
And that's in where that little felt bit is, you guys.
Right. So that's where the drop of oil is going to go. I always like to set a drop of oil here on the edge of the hook where the bobbin case sits, because I find it makes it nice and quiet after
1 drop.
1 drop.
And then do you find that, so then you put those, so basically you've used 2 drops.
I've used 2
one
drops
on the hook and 1 in the felt.
Right.
And then you're putting your bobbin casing back in and you're threading it.
Putting my bobbin case in, putting my needle plate back on.
Right, and getting it all back
screws. A key thing too, sorry, before I didn't interrupt you, is your needle plates. Your needle plates have a screw on either end. Do not over tighten your the screws on your needle plate. You will bend your plate. Then you're going to be sitting
with a wonky,
plate, and then you're going to end up with issues again.
Right. And sometimes I've found that after I oil it, it's good to run just a tester bit of thread and tester fabric in, right?
The reason behind it, so you don't end up with oil all over your
That's right. Because sometimes the oil, if you put a little too much,
it'll make a mark on your fabric.
Yeah, and it gets on the thread sometimes. And I know our technician, when he's doing stuff, and you do too, is run a bunch through, try to get that oil off. I
usually use a 2-inch strip about yay long, and I'll do some test sewing back and forth on it, and just
it's usually enough.
Yeah, try to get the oil out of it. There is some machines that come in that are seized up, and they require a little bit more, but we get through it.
Linda's asking, is that the same oil that is used for the long arm? It is.
It is.
That I use it. And with the long arm, we'll just tell you, that's not a once in a while. That's every bobbin change.
I do it daily.
Yeah. Every
Daily.
bobbin change,
Yeah.
you are oiling your long arm.
Yep.
And do we sell these bottles without the oil? No. Maybe do you guys?
So what we do is we sell the bottles,
Without
and
the
then
oil?
I have gallon,
refill them?
and I just, if somebody wants one, I refill it.
Okay.
9 times out of 10, they have lost it or they've thrown it. And
Right.
They come and purchase another bottle.
Yeah. So
So-
Mandel put a link up if you
Yeah.
want the bottle. We've got them filled with oil at the moment.
Yes.
But I'm sure.
But yeah, it's the same oil as the long arm, and your long arm is going to require oil for me daily.
Maria's asking, and how often does that home sewer need to do those 2 little drops of oil?
I
4
wouldn't-
months? Once a season?
couple months.
Yeah.
Every 2 months, you could throw a drop in there. It makes a difference. The oil will stay. It's still slippery in my hand.
Yeah.
The oil will stay on.
It's
your
oil.
hand. It's oil. It's fine. It's
If you're
don't get carried away with it though.
if you've done pieced a whole queen size quilt, then you quilted that
Give it a
queen
drop.
size quilt,
Drop it.
give it a couple drops.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt.
Yeah. Now, as long
again-
as it's just the 1 drop and the
Yes.
1 drop, you're not, oh, that was a
Yeah.
big quilt.
That's my so a drop, not
No.
it makes
no.
a big difference. Too much oiling can be detrimental too.
Yeah.
So 1 drop goes a long ways. Okay.
And point out just some, like a handful of
Okay.
the other points that get oiled
Some
when
of the
they
points.
bring it into you.
Okay.
to get
some of the
serviced.
points I'm going to throw underneath the camera here,
Mhm. Let's see them.
and we can see some here.
Mhm.
And there we go. Okay. So any of the moving parts up here in the take-up lever, you can see all the moving parts this way here.
I think it's important to point this out because
Okay.
some might wonder, well, if I can oil it at home, why wouldn't I just put a little extra in? It's because there's like, how many points would you say? Like 20, 30 points that you oil?
At least on this machine, at least 25 points.
Yeah, that you're not going to be able to get to
1,
at home.
2,
And they're
3,
all
4.
way tucked into every little nook.
half a
and cranny.
dozen of them you're not going to get to.
Exactly.
Just that I can see right off the bat.
Exactly. And, you know,
Janome is nice. They have placed felts, strategically placed felts in different spots where these felts, this particular felt is dry. It's one of Jen's machines off of her table. It's dry.
sorry.
So no, it's all good. So it would require to be oiled up so that it can absorb into the, we're tongue tied here. She left me standing by
I'm just
myself
here.
again.
I'm here.
So
That's good.
into the bearing. Each moving metal piece requires a drop of oil. So down here, up here at the top, in here, we're going to oil. I'm going to oil here. Sometimes we get thread around the take-up lever. That has to be taken out. That's going to bind up your machine. So that has to be looked at. That's something else that I look at. A drop of oil on the needle bar. I make sure that the needle bar is cleaned off. Make sure that the presser foot bar is cleaned off. It can use a drop of oil. Up at the other side here where you can't get to, okay, another bearing. A little drop of an oil there. And then down below we have the lower shaft. A drop of oil in here. And then we're going to move over and focus on the lower end of the machine. We're going to oil all part components after it's been cleaned. And right now I'm going to flip this upside down so you can see that. I'm going to show you here. It does look fairly dirty. So this would all have to be cleaned out. So cleaning the underside before I get into oiling it, that's where I'm going to. Once it's all cleaned, then I start oiling. And like I said, I usually start up here in the head, run over to the right by the hand wheel, come down. And that's how I do it.
But it's mostly to point out that it's hard. This is why you need to
You're
bring
not going
it
to
in.
get to this.
Yeah, and no one would expect someone to take this much, like take all of your machine apart. In fact, we would not recommend that you do that. In fact, what we would recommend is you do the oiling that Mike suggested in the bobbin casing, in that little felt bit, and then right along the edge of the hook there that he pointed out. And then the rest can be left up to us. And you wouldn't believe what we find. And I know you guys are cleaning out with brushes and things like that, but the amount of junk that sometimes comes out of a machine is like, that's nothing.
That's classroom today.
Yeah, that's just today. And it's, I want to show you a picture, and I'm not going to name any names here, but I love this woman, so I don't think she'll mind. But we really do take everything apart when we clean it. And this woman was having no issues with her machine. The M17 came in, 0 issues, stitching perfectly. We took it apart, and look at what we found in the hand wheel.
Yes, I'm just going to get to that. And Martin and I have had a few of those.
Yeah, because some thread got caught in the back. She didn't even know it was in here.
And it happens fast.
It happened so fast, and the machine wasn't even giving her any issues right then. Yeah.
So we've seen machines, can I just hold your phone for a second? Where that thread is on the edge of the case, where the case is actually melted.
Wow.
From all the thread buildup in there.
Because the rotations are so fast and so high that the heat, you know what I mean? Just
binds up. And so, it will lock up your machine.
And she didn't know it was in there. She knew that she had a tangle at one point, but she cut it all away, and she's like, oh, I got it. And that's how much was still left inside, and she had no idea. And, and she's a great, brought her machine in for regular, and we thought, oh, well, that's a surprise. She laughed, boy, when we showed her that picture.
Well,
Martin wants you to explain about the importance of the bobbin going in the right direction.
Yes.
Yeah, Martin's asking, does it matter how you put your bobbin in?
Yes.
And it sure does.
It does. So the way my loving wife showed me is, so if you're holding the bobbin.
You go ahead.
Okay, so if you're holding the bobbin, and hopefully we're going to be able to see this, like the letter P. So the thread comes down. Is that going to work? No, that's going to be hard. No. So it's going to be like the letter P. The thread comes down the left-hand side of the bobbin, and it rolls around. So that's how the bobbin is going to sit in the bobbin case. But there is times where it comes in, and it's like the number 9.
Uh-oh. Or the letter G.
Or the letter G, yes. So that is important also. Make sure you get your bobbin in your bobbin case correctly.
Yeah.
So yes, thanks, Martin, for the reminder. I appreciate it. And I did bring the screwdriver, sorry.
Oh, is he missing it?
Yeah, he's missing it now.
So when it's going in the bobbin casing, so if your bobbin casing is down and if it's facing this way towards you, you got your lowercase letter P.
Yeah.
Whoops, I'm blocking. You got your lowercase letter P. That's just dropping in there.
Dropping in.
Yeah.
And then you can, I'm going to lift this up so we can see her.
Come on right over here. You can show it. Or just right in front there. Yep.
Okay. We'll get somewhere where you can see.
There we go. And we're just going to move your thumb. There we go.
There we go. So like the letter P, and I always throw my thumb on top and get it underneath into the tension disc. Okay. So if it's in, it'll have some tension in there. You can feel the tension as you pull it.
Yeah.
And if it's not, it's going to fall. It's going to come loose.
Like it. Yeah, exactly.
There's no resistance. So pulling it backwards, again, is not the best idea. But in.
Lowercase letter P.
Yeah. And you can hear it click. I know you probably can't hear it click there, but it does. You can hear it click.
Laura Lee's saying P is for perfect.
Hey, I like that.
That's what she tells
that's
everyone.
That's what you got to put on the bills
smart.
from now on. P is for perfect.
That's very smart.
That's great. That's a great one. So yes, make sure the bobbin is inserted into the bobbin case correctly.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you put your bobbin in. Yes, Martin. Thank you. Bob says.
They're talking about the picture on the phone. Bob says that's just the emergency bobbin when all that thread is in there.
Yes,
I mean, I got to say, that kind of thing crosses my mind. Like, could I rewind that onto a bobbin?
No.
You don't recommend that?
No. So for me, I think I can explain how that took place. Okay. We have our sewing machine. She had the M7, you said?
M17.
M17. Okay. So she would have been sitting here with a thread tower here.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. The hand wheel will draw the thread in. And while you're watching yourself sewing, you're watching the project embroider and stitch away.
Oh, yeah. So beautiful.
It gets
just
sucked in.
mesmerizing.
So
meanwhile, over here,
if you're
A
using
bloodbath's happening while you're like, birds are tweeting. You're so
It's a
proud of
nest.
yourself.
it's a nest, it's a bird's nest,
Yeah.
rat, mouse nest.
Yeah.
So I recommend if you're using thread stands, get them behind the body of the machine, right here. You're not going to be in the way of your project, and it's away from the hand wheel.
Mhm.
So in behind the body of the machine.
If
For a
anyone's,
thread stand.
yeah, that's really good advice. If anyone's just tuning in, we are doing our Ask a Technician night here tonight. I'm Jennifer Tryon, and this is Mike Damour, and I'm from Homemade, and you're from Gem Sewing. So we've got Northern Ontario, Southern Ontario.
Uniting.
We're here to answer your questions. If you would like to ask us something in person, jump on the feed with us. There's a link in the chat. Amanda will throw it in there again. All you have to do is copy and paste that link into your browser and click it, and you'll type your name in, and we would love to hear from you. It'll just use your own webcam on your computer. Come as you are. No need for eyelashes or makeup.
We have somebody that's
And Mike
posted-
spent so long in the makeup chair before this live. I was like, come on, are we ever going to get going here?
Jesus.
All right.
Don't start. So we have somebody asking
Let's
about tension discs.
All right.
How do I clean my upper tension discs?
How do I clean my upper tension discs? Or is that just for a technician to do?
No, you can clean your upper tension discs.
Okay.
Okay.
And
But
can you do it
to-
with the casing on?
You can, yes.
Okay.
You can, but okay. So right off the bat, do not use pipe cleaners. Like I said earlier, pipe cleaners have metal in them. Yes.
It's like dental. Imagine, okay, everyone,
no,
everyone
no,
cringe
no.
for a minute with me.
No,
Picture
no.
using a pipe cleaner to floss your teeth. Ugh, that metal.
You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So don't use pipe cleaners.
No.
Pipe cleaners. So the tension discs, your discs that are up here on the top on all machines, two small little plates, and they come together flat tight. And if there's any gouges or marks or scratches in them, you will tear your thread, break your thread. It's not worth putting pipe cleaners through.
No.
What I end up doing is I open the machine up. I open up the tension discs by lifting the presser foot,
Mhm.
and that opens the discs. I know you can't see very well here, but the discs are open.
So
There you
it's
go.
open so on your regular machine that
It's
has
open.
the casing on, when the presser foot is down, they're closed.
Yep.
When it's up, it's open. And then what are you doing here to
So
clean?
I've told people that you can take thread,
Okay.
roll it up several times, and just
Dental floss it?
dental floss it that way.
Uh-huh.
Keep in mind though, if you've been pulling your thread backwards through the machine, you pulled all the lint through there, that lint is going to get balled up near the top, and then the tension discs are not going to close tight. So
That's actually a very good point that you bring up, that we should maybe tell people, like, best practice is to snip your thread up here.
Yep.
And pull it down through the needle when you're
Correct.
changing your thread, not to just
Correct.
yank it from up here and pull it back out through the machine. Even though I have to admit, Mike,
but it happens.
done it.
We are so
I
it
actually
happens.
do
But
it every time.
if we cut our thread on the top and we pull it by the needle, if we
through
can
the
get it
needle.
through the needle,
Yeah.
pull it out. I know it's a waste of about 24 inches of thread, but again, you're pulling dirty thread, lint, dust back through the tension disc. You are
Right.
going to cause more
I
grief
literally
down the road than you want. So
every time.
don't.
Every
Don't.
single time. But
So maybe I come and visit for a week. And
but you
watch
know
do the
what?
class.
I just gave a lesson to a woman this morning on her 6650, and she, we were doing it, and here's how you thread it. And I was like, and when you're done threading it, you pull it through this way. That's best practice.
That is.
And then but
Cut
did
it.
I also say, but do I do that?
on your own machine, that's fine. You're going to tear it apart yourself and clean it, right? Yeah. Okay. So cut at the top.
But I will get it
cut
cleaned
at
yearly.
the top. Yeah. Cut at the top.
Okay,
Pull it out the bottom.
I'll
You're
try
good
my
to go.
best.
So you can clean. Just keep in mind that if you have been pulling, you're creating those dust bunnies, and they are going to bind in the top of your tension discs, and your discs are not going to close tight,
Okay.
and it is going to create tension problems down the road, which means it is going to, I don't know, rat's nest on the bottom. It's going to be all on the bottom of your material. And then the first thing everybody goes to is the bobbin case. Well, that's an upper threading issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So rethread top and bottom, start all over. And tension discs, have them cleaned. They get cleaned from technicians. They should be cleaned from technicians. every time they come in for service.
Just scroll up a little bit. We had one someone
Somebody else?
asking, about what? Yeah, Ghislaine. But I'm just trying to find the. Oh yes, that's the one.
It's cold.
Yes, her sewing room is pretty cold.
Okay.
When she's not using it, 6 to 8 degrees, can that damage her machine?
I would think not.
But not.
6 to
Don't
8
leave it in your
degrees.
car overnight.
Well, if you're leaving it in your car overnight, let it warm up in the daytime before you use it.
Yeah, because the condensation gets in
That's right.
there, and if
That's
you're
right. So you will build condensation, bring it from cold to hot.
Yeah.
Let it warm up. Try not to keep it in such cold temperatures. I know it does happen.
But 6 to 8 degrees is not below, you're not, but it's not condensation buildup.
I've got a machine in the truck. It's been in the truck for 4 days, since Friday.
Don't let
Janome
hear that.
It's not going to get plugged in for a while because it's got to warm up.
Yeah, it's got to warm up.
Yes, I do have a machine in the truck.
And to be honest, the same is for hot temperatures too, because when we were moving here, and we had to pack all our machines in one of those storage bins.
Yep.
We just drove them here and immediately took the machines out because it was parked. It was going to be parked in the back while we were renovating, but we couldn't keep the machines in the hot baking temperature either.
No, plastic melts.
Well,
But yes, so temperature does make a difference.
What about humidity in the basement? We're asking.
My machines are downstairs in my basement.
Yeah.
I use my machines downstairs. I have my machine down there. Gail has her machine down there. Humidity, it's there.
If we didn't have machines in basements, no one would ever sew.
No, that's right.
So we're going to say yes to the basement.
The basement's going to be fine as long as it's not.
How do we know? This is a really good question
humidity?
from Florida humidity outside. But you know what? I've taken my machine outside in the hot summer, sitting by the pool sewing. That's my favorite thing to do. No problem.
I tried that. I just couldn't.
I
get into
loved
that.
it. I loved it. Okay,
So,
Alice has a really good question. How do we know the technician has done all the work?
That's a good question.
You gotta go somewhere you trust for sure.
That's right. You have to go someplace where you trust. So for me, I'm here with her. I trust her. So for me, Allison, what I would tell you is if you trust your store, then you should be good. For me, when I service a machine, I test the machine. I have a test swatch underneath the needle and the foot when it goes back out.
Yeah.
And I cut the thread on the top to show that the machine was threaded and used. And if it's not been working properly or it hasn't been done and it still has the same problems, then I would suggest bringing it back to your technician.
Yeah. And there's things to watch for. If you get your machine back,
much like your car.
Yeah, and there's no test swatch on it, and there's it should have a test swatch on it. Most technicians will leave that, like you said, the test swatch on there to show that the timing is, because they check that the timing's on. There's and there's we always put a fresh needle in. So whatever needle you've got in there, like we're chucking and putting a new needle in, and there should be a tail of thread that likely is not yours.
Correct.
That we've used in the shop. So those are ways to know the whole thing has been done. Now,
but yes,
is there a way to tell that Mike dropped oil on part number 22 on the left, quadrant of the right, whatever?
There is no way. I have a list that I go through for when I do my service, and I try to make sure I hit every piece.
Oh yeah, don't worry, he can fix it.
It's okay, I'll fix it after.
But do you want to know what? Something like that. These are all metal machines. That doesn't even faze me. If you were to drop that machine, especially without the plastic casing on, the thing that's mostly going to get damaged is the cover.
Yeah.
These are, especially the Janome machines, they're all metal machines. It takes a lot to physically break it.
We had a lady brought her machine in. It was dropped. The leg was bent. It was an easy fix.
Mm-hmm.
Very resilient, very tough.
Yeah.
But back to what Alice's question, trusting your technician. Build that rapport with your technician. Talk to him. Don't be afraid to ask questions, Alice.
I like the question, how much time does it take to clean a machine? And if your person says 15 minutes, we're right?
No.
Like 1 hour minimum.
Minimum for me is 1 hour.
Yeah, minimum. Because first of all,
it
you
takes
can't even
time to
take
get
it all apart in less than 30 minutes.
No, it takes time to take it all apart.
To just take it all apart, and then you got to put it all back together, let
Then you're
alone
testing it.
Yeah, let alone the oiling,
Yep.
the cleaning.
Yep.
And, then that's just if there's nothing actually wrong with it, and then putting it all back together. So a machine appointment should not take 15 minutes.
No, it takes me a minimum an hour and a half to
Mhm.
do one machine. This machine in particular would take me at least an hour to do.
For sure.
Uninterrupted.
And they're exactly uninterrupted.
Honey.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's funny. I know, it's true.
But it is
It's true.
uninterrupted. It's going to take me at least an hour from the time I start to the time I finish up my bill. It's going to take at least an hour to do the machine.
Mhm.
By the time I take it apart, by the time I oil it, by the time I put it back together, by the time I test it, and then if I'm hunting down another problem on the machine, then I've seen myself take up to 3 hours on a machine.
Especially the big computerized machines, ones that have
those
embroidery
are
arms.
Longer.
Yeah, they take because an embroidery arm is like its own machine in itself,
Yes.
apart from the regular sewing machine.
Correct.
And and anyone who's brought an embroidery machine in to get fixed knows it costs a little bit more, but that's because it does.
2 units.
Yeah, it's 2 full things.
Yep.
So yeah.
If it's a combo machine, it's 2 units that have to be addressed. So yes, try to build a rapport with your technician. Talk to them, ask them questions.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
It's your machine. You have the right to know what was done to your machine. Ask the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do with my truck when I bring it in for servicing.
Yeah.
I ask the questions.
And it's funny how many people don't realize that their machine actually does need to be serviced once a year,
Yep.
sort of like our cars. Like you need to get the oil changed. You need to have your machine oiled professionally once a year. And, most machines these days, we spend a lot of money on machines. It doesn't cost that much to keep them in good working order, and they really will last a very long time. In fact, let's face it, 9 times out of 10, nobody's upgrading because their machine doesn't work anymore. They're upgrading because they want all the great new bells and whistles.
Bigger throat space.
More throat space. I want the stitch regulator. I
Yes.
want to be able to have that big hoop on the big machine.
Embroidery.
Yeah, I love that. It's not because this machine doesn't work anymore. This is my
No,
little
it still
back.
works. Now it becomes a travel machine.
That's right.
Go
So-
to retreats.
Exactly. So if you take good care of your machines, they'll last and last. You can pass it on to your kids or grandkids while you upgrade to the fancy new.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
The mother come in or the grandmother come in, and I'm going to give this one to my granddaughter, and I'm going to buy the big new one, which is fine.
What's
So,
the
yeah.
approximate price of an annual cleaning? We were talking about this before, and it does vary.
Varies from machines.
It varies on machines. Most shops are pretty close.
Yep.
But if you have a completely mechanical machine, like no computerization, that's usually the base price. And it's around $100, maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more.
Yep.
And then as you have computerization, because you'll notice, see all these wires hanging out here? There's actually something to rewiring this. That's kind of a big ordeal to make sure everything's going in the right spot. All those wires get reconnected properly, that those are cleaned out, that this motherboard here doesn't get fried, and that it's
Yep.
properly cleaned. So a computerized machine costs, $10, $20 more, maybe a little bit more
A lot
based
more
on where you
expensive
are.
out west, too.
Oh, is that right?
A lot more
I've
expensive.
actually heard that. Hey, ship it to
But-
us. We'll clean it for you, and then it won't be as expensive.
Yeah. No, prices vary from different shops.
Between $100 and $200.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
And
between.
it all depends on how much work has to be done. And that's not including your parts. Parts are usually extra
Mhm.
unless they're under warranty. I know Janome's got a great warranty on their machines, which is
1 year,
fabulous.
5 year, 25 years.
Yep.
And usually when you bring it in, if we find anything that, oh, this isn't working, I don't know if you realize that this was broken, a good dealer, a good technician will call you, let you
Yep.
know what's going on. Sometimes you don't, sometimes it's not worth throwing money at a machine that has been discontinued already,
Right.
because it's hard to get parts for machines that are discontinued. So if you're buying a used machine that's been discontinued, it probably works just fine, no problem. But if something comes up with that machine, you might think about upgrading rather than even bothering.
I like to try to call my customers to let them know needle threader's not working, small things. when it gets into the big things, it's an automatic phone call. You don't want to be blindsided with a price that you were expecting to pay X number of dollars, and it's 3 times that price because the scissor cutter motor went, or the stepping motor, feed motor went. You don't want to be blindsided by that. So
Yeah.
Each store has different prices. Phone us, talk to us.
Yeah.
We'll give you our prices.
Call Gem Sewing, call Homemade.
Yep.
We've got lots of contact info. You can email us, email Gem Sewing, and we'll let you know how much it is for an annual service.
Yep.
And, you kind of think about it like your car. If you don't change the oil in your car, you're going to have problems. If you don't oil your machine,
Yep.
My very best friend in the world came in with her daughter not that long ago, and they had a little brother machine that they had bought from Walmart, ages ago. And, the kid's sewing on it, fine, whatever. But has been sewing on it for 7 years.
And it's still running?
It wasn't running.
Okay. I was asking a question. Sorry.
No, those machines aren't lasting.
Nah.
But she brought it in. I'm surprised it even lasted as long as it did, because we got it all apart, and because it had seized up. And there was smoke, like black smoke marks, like where the machine had stopped itself from catching on fire. And I said, well, did you oil it? And they're like, we had no idea. We just bought the machine at Walmart. And I was like,
that's why it's important to buy a machine from
a dealer.
The
The dealer will help you with those kinds of things, but
That's
a lot
right.
of people don't realize that you have to oil them.
Purchase the machine from the dealer. They'll give you instruction.
They'll give you a lesson.
They'll give you a lesson on how to clean out underneath your bobbin case so that you are able to do preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
And it will make your sewing adventures much better.
Denise is asking, will your shop service a machine bought elsewhere? And can you do the warranty work? We hear this all the time.
So to answer that, Denise, I can do the work.
Yeah, we will too.
Warranty work, I'd end up charging you for the job. You would have to submit your receipt. It's best if you've purchased a machine from another shop, go to the shop, because the warranty work will be done and covered there. That is the easiest way to explain that.
That is the easiest way, but I also get, like, from a customer point of view, so annoyed when I hear customers, they come in all the time and they go, I went there or I bought the machine from TSC, because I'm on TSC all the time.
That's
I
right.
bought the machine from TSC and I brought it into my local dealer and they won't do the work. And I was like, what? Why not?
So, yeah.
That annoys me, honestly. Just do the work. I'm paying for it. And if it's warranty,
If it's warranty,
for me, Janome will cover it
Yes.
one way or another. And I kind of feel like that's a conversation with your local dealer.
Yes.
Who's going to be covering it. If you came into Homemade, I would call Janome and be like, okay, we got this machine. It was blah, blah, blah. Who's paying for this?
For me,
we'll
I
just do our
try
best.
to help out the customer as
Same.
much as I can, because I'm gaining the trust and I'm gaining a new customer.
Yeah, Lori bought her machine from the shopping channel, and from the shopping weather channel.
Shopping. But it
From
was
the
cold that day.
Yeah, they keep it cold in the studio, keeps us awake.
Yeah.
I mean, Lori, if you bought your machine from the shopping channel and you brought it into Homemade, yeah, we would service it, no problem. Yeah, no problem.
Should be no difference in service. Kathy.
Kathy, should be no difference in fixing any other electronic in our homes. Yeah, bring it to the technician. Yeah.
If there's a major
Warranty thing, we'll figure it out.
We figure it out. We try to figure it out, because in the north, we're in such a rural area, so we try to help out that way. But yes, I try to help out as many people as I can.
Same.
Because I'm gaining customers and meeting new people too.
And you know what it's like to have spent all this money on your machine, and if something goes wrong, you don't want to hear, I can't help you.
You want
when
the
you're
backing.
Yeah, like I
The
want
backing behind the product.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I don't care if you bought it from me or didn't buy it from me.
Yep.
There's right and wrong way of doing things, and I just feel like if you're getting the runaround from someone like, oh, you didn't buy it from me. Well, you know what? Like, I think it's good business to help them out, and they'll probably come back, and that is good business,
That's the way I look at it.
Anyway, sorry. Dennis saying, yeah.
Oh.
Can you give a recap on how we know when to tune our machines? When to
Sure.
bring in
Okay,
to
so a recap on when to bring your machine in.
Mhm.
I tell all of my customers, and I'm sure you would tell your customers the same, at least once a year. If you're sewing casually Monday to Friday or just on weekends, once a year. If you're sewing Monday to Saturday, 5 days,
multiple
6
quilts
days.
a month
Yeah.
or something.
I would run it up as far as every 7 months.
You have a side hustle. You're, making
We're
things.
make on the side. A
Mhm.
lot of our customers are doing stuff and bringing them to craft shows and selling their product at craft shows. I would say 7, 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, you listen to your machine. When I go to retreats, I know Gail gets upset with me every now and again because I walk around and I listen to the different machines because they're not all the same brand, but I'll walk around and you can hear that needle working so hard.
Thud.
Yeah,
You get a thudding,
yeah.
you got a dull needle.
Change the needle. It's not worth it. Change the needle. And I walk around, I listen, and I usually have a package of needles. And I said, "Can I change the needle for you?" And just, it'll make things so much easier, so much better.
Yeah.
And for what is a package of needles works out to be what, $1.50 a needle or $2 a needle
Yeah, it could save your whole project. You probably spend $100 on fabric.
at least.
And spend $1 on the needle. I know,
Yes.
exactly. If you're hearing like the thud, 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 change the needle. If you're hearing like that, click, but then it keeps sewing a minute and you're like, oh, I'll just pretend I just didn't hear that.
No, don't.
That's something to do with the bobbin underneath. Stop.
Correct.
You're getting a tangle. Just stop.
Stop, cut the thread down
Yeah,
top.
and rethread.
Rethread top and bottom right away. Listen. If you
We've all,
hit something,
we've all
that you
heard it and
figured,
ignored it.
don't be afraid to change the needle. And if it still makes the same noise, then you're going to have to dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and maybe just something's caught down there or something like that, and you might be able to get it out with your little brush. Yeah.
Pin. I've seen so many people run over pins.
Tip of the needle sometimes breaks off down like underneath the eye, so you don't really know that the needle is broken, or it's microscopically broken.
And it's all rounded.
Yeah.
Tip is like that.
Yeah.
I've found plasticine in machines.
Wow.
Yeah, plasticine. I pulled out in one machine. I pulled out 37 pins.
Wow.
Out of one machine. So I kind of.
I'd be out of pins.
Well, I weren't. I handed them back to the customer and told her. She told me where they were coming from, and I asked, "Don't let your child be sticking pins in the side."
Oh shoot.
So.
So if you're just tuning in, we've been talking for the last hour. We're going to wrap it up soon, but I do think it's worth mentioning just one more time where on our own machine we should be putting the oil, and again, how often that should be happening.
Every couple. Yeah. So every couple months, a drop of oil right here in the center is not going to hurt your machine. Is going to help. Now a drop. Not a squirt, a drop of oil. And I always set a drop of oil where the bobbin case rides, right on the edge of the hook. I'm watching that, so you can see that. It's not going to hurt. You can see these points here too. This is part of your feed drive, and the other part is over here. One drop, if you can access it, one drop. If you can't, don't worry about it, because your technician should have done that when he was servicing your machine. So again, a drop of oil here in the center in that felt. Do not pull the felt out, leave it, and a drop of oil on the hook.
If you can feel oil in the felt, like on your
then
finger.
Then don't put any in.
Okay.
Do not. If you can feel, so what I'll do is I'll look at my finger. You can see?
Oh, you can see it.
So, and that's just from touching there. So you can see it, so it's not needed. Don't put the drop in there, you're good. Check your bobbin case.
And so if you touch it and you don't get any oil on your finger, is that an indicator that you should?
Put a drop of oil in. It's not going to hurt it.
Okay.
A drop.
Not a hose.
Yeah, no,
we're not at Coyote Ugly here getting the spray down.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep people tuning in.
Yes, you're doing great. Bobbin cases, inspect your bobbin cases. Look for any unusual, oh my gosh. Make sure your bobbin case is seated incorrectly. Yes, like, see, there she is. My cue cards are over there.
My son is looking at me like, could you please?
So inspect your bobbin case. Make sure there's no strikes on it. There's no marks on it. There is a way for you to cure that with a piece of emery cloth or a little piece of sandpaper, gently sanding where the needle has struck the bobbin case. If you can't get it smooth, come in.
Yeah, if you're not comfortable doing that,
bring it in.
Don't do it.
I'll do it.
Yeah, it takes like a second, and
Yeah,
so bottom line, don't use
10W30. No, Kathy, please. No WD-40, no WD-50, no 10W30, please. And I see the coyote.
What?
All right. So yes, inspect your bobbin case. Make
Yeah.
sure it's good. If it's good, you like it, stick it back in where it belongs, and make sure it is seated in properly. So many people move it to one side, and then they end up striking it. So make sure that the shoulder of the bobbin case is at the bobbin case stopper. It is going to be very hard to see. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to show you right here.
Yep.
Okay. And make sure that bobbin case stopper that I'm touching right here, make sure that the
Little arrows are lined up.
that's right.
Red with the red, or red
White.
with blue, or
Red
white,
with,
or
white with white, red with red. Make sure that they're lined up. Once that's done, then I would take your machine again and I would put your needle plate on, put the screws in, and snug up your screws. Do not over tighten. I have a lot of machines that have come in the past. I've had to put pliers on the screw to hold the needle in place just to pull it out. Don't over tighten those. You will strip them. And don't over tighten your needle plate.
Diane's asking 3-in-1 oil. Would that be adequate?
Use sewing machine, Diane. Sewing machine oil.
Yeah, we're talking about this stuff here. You have to use sewing machine oil. There's a link in, or Amanda will put one in the chat.
A little bit different. So yeah, the 3-in-1 oil, use the sewing machine oil. Inexpensive. You have a bottle like this that would last you a long, long time. You would have to get rid of your machine before you get another bottle.
Karen's asking, I got oil with her 1600P. Is that the same oil for the 9450?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep, no problem.
Yes, it is the same oil. It's just in a small tube, I believe. It is the same oil, it's just a smaller version.
Yep.
You can get the smaller versions of this also. So yes, it's the same oil as your...
if your machine came with oil, you can use that oil.
Correct,
Yep.
correct. And it's usually a tube. It's only
just like
tube.
a little tube.
And it's going to last a long time.
Yep.
So yes. And I seen another question down there.
Let's just go up a little bit for us, so we can just check out the feed here.
3-in-1, 3-in-1. Yeah, okay. So you got your dance in. That's good.
Oh, this has been really good.
Yes, I've enjoyed myself so far, and I hope.
Yeah,
From our email.
we got a question on email. Yep.
Should we use cotton or polyester in our machine?
Should we use cotton thread or polyester thread? You can use both threads.
Use both of them. I've used both.
Polyester is
time.
Cleaner.
Yes, polyester is cleaner.
It is cleaner.
But I've used both threads at the same time.
Yep.
I've ran
Twin needle. Yeah.
twin needle, and I've used the cotton and a polyester. I was doing some thread painting. Had fun doing it, just wasting up excess bobbins that I had.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to remember though, cotton's a little bit dustier.
Yes. Polyester thread, like Deco Bob, is lint free. It's completely polyester, no lint.
Oh,
That's great. Yeah, it's beautiful in your machine. Cotton thread's also beautiful on your stitches, but it's a little dustier. And especially the poorer quality thread you use, the dustier it is. If you
Correct.
take a spool of thread, I'm sure I've got one sitting around here, and you hold it up to the light,
Yep.
You'll be able to tell what kind of quality thread you've got, because you'll see that it's kind of furry in the light, especially a cotton thread.
You'll see the fuzz coming
You'll
off
see the
line.
fuzz
Yes.
coming off, especially like big serger comb thread that you're like, wow, this was like $3 and I got like 10,000 meters. And you're like, we're going to see all that thread in the bottom of your machine. It's just a
less
poof.
than half a project and it's
Poof.
all over. Yes.
It's all over, because you do get what you pay for. And even with brand name threads, if you can hold it up to the light and you see it's kind of furry, like I've held
Cautious.
up, Gooderman, and then I've held up Wonderfill. The difference is night and day. And I use Gooderman all the time, but just know it's not as clean in your machine.
We were at a retreat and somebody had issues breaking thread all the time. I just held it up to the light.
Yeah.
And every
You
8,
can
9
see
inches,
it.
no, there was a bump.
Yeah.
It was like a knot in the thread. So pay attention to your thread. You've spent that much money on your machine. It's not going to hurt just to spend a little bit extra with your thread and not use the old thread that's been kicking around. Keep your thread out of the sunlight.
Yeah.
That's a no-no too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
less fuzz. Yes.
Martin wants to know if you could talk about the needles and putting them in crush.
Oh yeah. Flat backs.
Flat to the back. Yes.
Yep.
Thanks again, Martin. So yeah, we've had machines come in, Janome machines and other brands that we work on. And yes, the flat is not to the back. The flat is to the front. And if you have the opportunity, and I apologize, I didn't bring it. I have a needle that I purchased. It's about yay tall.
Yeah, it's the big.
Yeah, and you can see the what the needle looks like, and the scarf of the needle has to go in by the hook. So flat to the back. The older machines, it'll go different directions, but the newer machines nowadays, flat to the back.
Long arm machines are
have a flat
round.
spot.
Yeah, they're around all the way around. So
Just a shaft.
yeah, and you're just going to want to make sure that the thread is sort of at like 530, like 630, kind of facing front or slightly off,
Yes.
off center. So long arms are
A little bit different,
but
needles, yes.
yeah,
But
a little
again,
bit different for needles. Require far more oiling than your regular machine.
Correct.
With each bobbin change, you want to be oiling your machine just because the
Checking
speed
your
is,
tension.
yeah,
There's all
Oh.
kinds involved with a long arm than just a regular domestic machine.
yeah, for sure.
But yes, all the new machines nowadays flat to the back.
Yeah. Before we wrap it up, this is your
all
chance to ask Mike or me or any other questions. If you're just tuning in, you can just rewind this and watch it at your leisure. If you're just catching us now, we've gone through how to oil your machine, where a technician cleans the machine, all the spots you can reach versus all the spots that the technician reaches when they've taken it apart.
Correct.
Like this, and how your machine really does need to come in for repairs at least once a year for sort of hobby sewing. If you're really like, I'm retired and it's all I do,
6 days a week.
yeah, then you kind of want to bring it in maybe twice a year or every 7 months, something like that. And we'll be happy to help you out.
And don't be afraid to ask to talk to your technician.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you have questions, feel free to email
Yeah.
either one of us
Yeah.
or come in and stop and see us.
Yeah. We'd love to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming and seeing me.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah. It's been
That was
fun.
great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Even the coyote dance.
Always keeping it a little spicy.
But thanks for having us. It's been great. And I enjoy doing this and talking to people.
Monica, we're going to take Monica's last
Okay.
question. Any
Monica.
trick to fix the reverse button on a mechanical machine? Maybe it's getting a little sticky.
Monica, the easiest thing I can tell you is bring it in. What's happened is the oil over if it's
probably
an older
built,
machine,
yeah.
it gets gummy on the shaft. I know that's not the proper terminology, but gets gummy on the shaft, and the reverse mechanism doesn't slide and kick into gear. That's what's happening. So for the technician, it should be an easy fix. I've taken them apart several times, fixed them, put
But
them
you
back
do
together.
need to take it apart. She can't like squirt that button with oil and then help that out. No,
Bring it in. I know. Bring it in. Get it fixed proper, and you'll be off and running.
because
Should have no
mechanical
problems.
machines can just run and run and run and run and run because you're really not, sacrificing, like you don't have motherboards to deal with and all
Still
those,
need to be serviced.
but they still need to be serviced.
Yes.
Yeah. The oil, you can't have metal scraping metal. That's bad.
Yes. So yeah, I'm pretty sure, I almost guarantee I know what the problem is, but yes, that's what's happening. It's binding. Bring it in. We'll get it looked at, get it fixed for you, and you will be off and running.
Thanks
So-
so much for being here.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for all your great questions, everybody. We
Thank
hope
you,
this has
everybody.
helped. If you're watching on the replay and you have further questions over the next couple days, we'll scour through these comments and we will respond to you in the comments if you want to leave your question on the replay.
6 weeks,
Otherwise, you can come on back. You can reach out to either Gem Sewing or Homemade, and we're happy to answer your questions in person.
So one quick one.
Sure,
One more
sure.
comment. I know you're getting tired,
No,
right?
no.
You're
I mean, I
keeping me
love
up.
it.
So there was one comment. There was a 6-week wait.
Aye.
Monica, I'm sorry, Monica, if it's a 6-week wait. Technicians seem to be far and few between.
Ship it to us if you've got your box.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, parts. If you need a part,
If it's a part thing, it could be that's the issue.
6 weeks feels like a long time to wait for a cleaning.
How about 2 months for parts?
Yeah, 2 months, 3 months for parts.
It's-
We've been hearing this from Janome sometimes too, because if
And
they
the
don't have the
other
part,
ones.
it's got to get on a ship and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. We try to
Comes-
stock as many as we possibly can, but sometimes the parts are
No,
like, you
that's
never
right.
know what you
So-
need.
It for just a service, 6 weeks should not be there unless that particular place that you're dealing with is overloaded with work.
We try to in and out in a day or two.
So yeah, for me, it's 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
I tell them I'm that busy.
No, we're not that
I know
busy.
that says it's. I know that's wrong,
That
but
means you're good.
we are busy. Martin and myself, we take care of the 2 stores. We have Sylvia
Yeah, you
taking
have 3
care.
stores.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So
We are a day or two, and you'll have it back. We also, if you are waiting for a part, we lend you a
You got
machine.
loaners?
We
Sweet.
yeah,
That's
we
nice.
will lend out a machine so that you're not left without anything. And that's the honor system, and that's why you go to a dealer you can trust, because we're going to trust you. Please bring that machine back,
Some
and
big box stores aren't going to loan you one.
that's for sure.
Again, thank you for having us. That has been
this
great.
has been fun. Really
Super.
fun.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
very
much for
much.
tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye bye.